Hello, everybody. Welcome to BTN Live. I'm Jack, and I've got a very special guest joining me today. We have Catherine Bennell-Pegg.
Hi, everyone.
Who, if you don't know, is the Director of Space Technology at the Australian Space Agency, but also you are the first astronaut to train under the Australian flag.
Yeah, it's a huge honour. We've had astronauts from Australia before fly for NASA, like Andy Thomas from here in Adelaide. And I have the honour of getting to wear the Australian flag on my shoulder, representing my country, hopefully one day in space. Yeah. And I'm so excited for what that can mean for everyone listening in, perhaps for your futures if you want to be astronauts too, or perhaps work with astronauts, giving them payloads, or being flight surgeons, or being the bosses in mission control. Yes. Perhaps there's a future there now too.
Lots of different options, and also great that we now have our own space agency in Australia, so you can be doing that stuff there like you. But that is really cool to have the flag. How does that feel?
Oh, it feels incredible. I wanted to be an astronaut ever since I was
going to ask,
kid.
Is this something, or was it just like, I fell into it?
No, I didn't just fall into it.
I think you do.
Some astronauts decide they want to be an astronaut when they see the ad, but many of us have had the childhood dream to be an astronaut. I grew up on the northern beaches in Sydney where the sky was full of stars, and when my mum told me that some of those stars were actually planets that no one had ever seen up close with their eyes before, we've never gone further than the moon. I just thought that would be the greatest adventure. And then as I grew up, I fell in love with science and wanted to be part of discovery. Yeah. But Australia didn't have a space agency. I didn't even know what an engineer was. But I applied to be one anyway because the degree had the word space in the title. And I became a space engineer. I got to work on some of the coolest missions I could have ever hoped for, launching rockets from above the polar circle, gravity wave missions, missions to Mars and the moon, the space station. And then I finally got my chance to apply to be an astronaut just a few years ago. And now I get to be an Australian astronaut, greater than I ever had dreamed, representing the Australian Space Agency, the patch I wear here on my flight suit.
It's amazing. Is there plans to go into space eventually?
Well, we'll see. There's nothing guaranteed for me, but it's my job to remain ready and to remain capable.
So how do you remain ready for space? Well, is it a mindset thing? Because for me, I'm terrified. Like when we do space a lot on BTN, and kids will often ask, would you want to go to space? And I'm always like, no, that feels terrifying. I'm assuming you don't feel that way.
Oh, I just think it would be absolutely phenomenal to be in space. You fly in space, you float around. You do. But really to look back at the Earth and see the beautiful Earth where you don't see borders between countries. You see the thin blue line of air in which all life as we know it has evolved. You look out at the universe. This is terrifying me.
This is just like, I'm like, oh, too much. I don't know. I'm like, what if I fell?
Well, actually, when astronauts do spacewalk, so you open the hatch and you sort of step out of the space station, you do it in pairs, you're told don't look down at first because you get this fear of heights. You feel like you're going to fall. In fact, you can't fall down, you're already falling. An orbit around the Earth is falling, but you need to hold on, not look down, move around a bit, realize you're not going to fall, and then you have a minute or two to enjoy the view, especially if you're the first one out, and then you get on with your mission.
Okay. Yeah, look, I will stick to this on the ground, but I enjoy that other people like yourself find that very exciting because it's an important job, what you do up there.
I mean, astronauts are just a visible tip of an iceberg of a much larger team on the ground of scientists and engineers, tradies that build the spacecraft and the rockets, people that work in media and communications, artists, space historians. If you put the word space in front of a job, it exists somewhere.
Yes.
We're supported by nutritionists and fitness instructors.
There you go.
It's incredible.
So many different avenues to explore in terms of space. I want to go to this question from Tyler from Canterbury Primary School because asks a bit about the training you did. But Tyler says, why is it important for astronauts to train on Earth before going on space missions? And what kinds of activities might they do during this training? So you would know.
Absolutely. I can tell you that training, Tyler, is the next best thing aside from being in space.
Yes.
And most of an astronaut's time is spent training here on the ground. Right now I'm doing some training with the Australian Air Force and Defence, as well as working at the Space Agency to keep current. But when you're selected to be an astronaut representing a country, it comes off the back of a big astronaut selection. I had 6 knockout rounds where I had to travel internationally for them that went over a year and a half.
Is it like an audition? Do you have to sing?
Well, luckily not. I actually had to do impromptu speeches, but no singing.
Oh, okay.
I had to answer questions in foreign languages I claim to know. We had to do a lot of maths. Well, you
yes,
never know.
I do speak French.
You wanted to be sure.
Yeah.
We did computer-based tests like games.
Okay.
We lived in a hospital for a week and had every test you could imagine without a scalpel. We had fitness tests, operational tests, and so on. But at the end of all that, when we're selected to be astronauts, those of us that were invited to do the training, 6 of us, we weren't called astronauts right away. We were called ASCANs, which is kind of a mean term for astronaut candidates.
Yes.
We had to go through about 13 months of training, and if you get through that gauntlet, you get your astronaut wings and you're ready for a mission to the International Space Station or even the moon, right? And that training is amazing because astronauts today, they have to be all-rounders.
Yep.
So you usually go to space for many months and you have to be able to do every job. So no matter what your background is, whether you're a scientist, an engineer, a doctor, or a pilot, you can be any of those things before you're an astronaut. You have to be able to do all of it in space.
Wow.
So you're the hands and the eyes of the scientists on the ground. You're a medical test subject. You're a medical practitioner. You're a space tradie up there, and you're a science communicator. So we learn about all these things, but I think one of my favorite parts was learning how to do spacewalks.
Okay.
So to do that, we go diving deep in pools and with buddies around the huge full-scale mock-ups of the International Space Station. And you do that for many, many hours because most spacewalks are 6 to 8 hours to repair the space station or to implement something on it.
That's a whole shift at BTN.
It's the hardest thing you can do in space.
Wow.
I don't know if your fingernails fall off at BTN.
No. Wait.
If you're on your ship.
No.
Yeah, the gloves are quite hard to work in because you're basically inside a big balloon. So sometimes people's fingernails go black or fall off.
Oh.
And because water's heavy, right? If you move your arms, you can feel you have to push underwater.
Yes.
In air, you don't feel that the same way because air compresses. So we also train in something called vomit comets.
Okay.
These are
Which
flights.
I think we've got vision of that as well.
Yeah, the plane actually is flying through the sky like a roller coaster.
Oh yeah.
But in the vomit comets, you float. You're basically skydiving with the plane falling around you. And we do that so that when we get to space, we're really efficient at our job.
Okay.
And
So
when
you're
we're
sort
used
of
to the
used to it.
environment.
Yes.
But with the touch of your finger or the stub of your toe, you can flip around the different you can be on the roof.
This is like a plane going just like that in the sky.
It's in parabolas.
Okay.
Just like when you throw a ball, it moves in a curve. That curve is a parabola. The plane flies in a parabola because that's how you move.
And
when you
it's
fall.
that where you then sort of go up and.
Yeah, you don't feel that inside the plane.
Okay.
And the plane, when it catches you, you feel 2G, so you're twice your weight. And then micro G. But that isn't the only way that you feel a different kind of gravity in space that we have to train for. When you are launched to space and when you return from space, you feel hypergravity, which is extra gravity. And in fact, we learn to do that and to handle that by going in what's called a centrifuge. So you're sitting inside a big capsule.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a simulator. Sometimes you're just experiencing it. I think we've got some vision of me in one here where I wasn't operating anything. We'll just meet in a seat, experiencing the force. And we went up to 6G. So that's when you're 6 times your weight.
Oh, wow.
So, basically in that, it was amazing. We went through what it feels like to go through a launch and a re-entry. And actually, when pilots sit in their jets and do flips and turns, they feel the force pulling the blood towards their feet. As an astronaut, we're actually lying on our back with our knees in the air. So we feel the force through our chest. Oh. So it's hard to breathe. You have to take sips of air, like to breathe. And I loved it. It was like the best ride ever. And we also did, winter survival,
it also
ocean,
now
and so on.
will start spinning.
Yeah, that's how it makes you feel heavy. It spins up
Okay.
really fast. Yeah, it's amazing.
Was there a favorite and a least favorite part of the training?
Oh, wow. Well, I enjoyed these operational trainings and learning how to operate the big 17-meter long robotic arm on the space station.
Yeah.
But I especially also enjoyed the survival trainings.
Okay.
So we did winter survival, ocean survival, firefighting and rescue, all those skills that you can learn if you're in the emergency services when you're older as a volunteer, for example, or in defense, you can apply that. And that helps you to work well in a team. But in space, when astronauts go up after they feel that G-force of the launch, they're all strapped to their seats, so they can't always feel it right away. So we have something called a zero gravity indicator. And it's tradition to use toys for a zero gravity indicator. And actually, I have one just here that's been to space. This is Pura.
Hi, Pura.
That's a word for a kangaroo in a First Nations language, which has a star constellation story behind it. And this particular one was taken to space by astronaut Shannon Walker, who is Australian NASA astronaut Andy Thomas's wife as well.
And there's Pura in space.
Absolutely.
There you are. That's you.
And it's very special and very rare to have something go to space and come back again.
Yeah.
So we're really lucky to have this. It sits in our Australian Space Discovery Centre.
Is there any changes that happened to Pura?
Not that we know of. Not that we know of. However, when we take other things to space, we do see changes. I have something else here. This here is a food in space sample kit from Swinburne University and their partners One Giant Leap and KPMG. And what they did is they sent up some seeds to space, some microgreen seeds and some other things. And then they made these kits. They brought the seeds back after astronauts had looked after them up there. And in there, they give you some earth-based seeds and some space seeds, and you can grow them and see the difference. And we're actually seeing that the space seeds are growing a little bit differently.
Are they?
Would you like to see
in what
them?
way? Yeah, sure.
So they're growing better and stronger. And so there's a lot of things we still don't know and are still learning about. So there's some seeds that have been in space.
They're growing bigger. Did you say?
Yeah, and thriving a bit more. So you can do experiments.
I wonder why that is. Just because maybe they've had a really good experience in space. So they're just thriving.
In space, there's no gravity pulling them down that they can feel. And there's also some radiation. And that can have different effects. So, very special that you've got something
I know.
Space
I'm like,
there.
what do
You can pop them back in if you want. But we've actually had astronauts take up a number of different experiments. Here in Australia, we have some fantastic researchers looking at growing plants in space for food for astronauts and to help with drought-tolerant plants here on Earth. And other astronauts from other countries have even taken up things like mango stem cells to see if they can make better crops for use here on Earth. Now, mangoes take too long to grow in space. You need a big tree.
Okay, I was going to say
that's the Earth, right?
Yeah,
we have to have better mangoes down here.
Well, we love a mango here in Australia, don't we? We have a lot of questions coming through about the bathroom. So I think we should just get it over and done with. We've got Shelley and Tobias from Wheeler Heights Primary saying, how do you go to the bathroom?
Oh, wow. I grew up near Wheeler Heights. Hi, Wheeler Heights Primary. Well, you go to the bathroom in space very, very carefully.
You should probably do that on Earth too, perhaps. Maybe,
yes, but the mess stays on the ground in Earth.
True.
In space, if you make a mistake, it floats. And in fact, the first few times you use a bathroom in space, you're often advised to leave your clothes outside the door because otherwise you may have to float through past all the cameras in dirty clothes called a float of shame. But in space, what's really important is that we recycle as much as we can. Mm-hmm. So number ones are recycled.
Okay.
So the glass of water you drink one day is the same glass of water you drink the next day.
Wow.
Which is a really good reason to pay attention to your toilet maintenance sessions. And the number twos, you bag them up. It looks like it's a bin. There's no seat. You don't need to sit down in microgravity 0G, right?
Yeah.
But you have to aim, and then it has to go into a bag, and it's bagged up just like a nappy bag and stored until the next cargo vehicle comes and it re-enters and burns up in the atmosphere and becomes a shooting star.
That is beautiful. What a beautiful
can
journey.
Wish upon it.
You can Yeah, so I think I had heard that actually. Sometimes if you see a shooting star and you make a wish, it could be that you're
There's a small chance.
wishing on astronaut
There's a small
feces.
chance. But most things in space that are normal life, you have to adapt. Brushing your teeth, for example.
Yes.
There's no showers or baths in space. You use wet wipes.
I was going to say lots of wet wipes.
Exactly. And cloths and special shampoo that you just wipe out with a towel.
Yeah.
The toothpaste, usually swallow. It's a special kind of toothpaste. You shouldn't swallow your normal toothpaste.
Yes, I remember that as well, like actually, that it is a special one. We also have a lot of people, I'm just going to, and maybe it's the same person. I've got Tom also from Wheeler Heights, and there was a few up here. Caden also from Wheeler Heights. They just want to know about aliens. Are there aliens? Do you have any insight? Is there anything you can reveal?
Well, I'm going to answer really clearly at first, which is to say we've never found evidence of other aliens. We've never been visited by other aliens that we know of. However, I think there must be aliens out there somewhere because the universe is huge. Just in our galaxy, the Milky Way, there's about 100 billion stars. Now, when you look up at the night sky, you could see with your eyes maximum 5,000 or 6,000 if you're out in the desert. So that's 100 billion. We think that there are 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. So the number of stars is 2 with 24 zeros after it. And that is actually way more than all the grains of sand on all the Earth, including the desert and the ocean floors.
Yeah, wow.
And over the last few years, we've just started to look at 4 exoplanets, planets around other stars, just in the stars closest to us. And we found more than 6,000. Almost every star has planets. So, I mean, it's got to be out there.
Got to be some. And they're when they're looking at the exoplanets, is it, if I remember correctly, they're looking for the Goldilocks habitat or
the habitable zone.
Yes, the habitable zone where it's just right for life to exist.
Exactly. And we also know that life on Earth can exist in space. Tardigrades, water bears that look a bit like gummy bears with extra legs and are super tiny. They live everywhere, even in your garden. They can live for a long time in space. They go into a kind of hibernation so life can travel. And maybe we'll find life in our solar system. We're going to go to the icy moons of Jupiter and Saturn to look, and to Mars to look for evidence of past life. And if we find it, the question is, does it come from the same tree of life as us? Or a different one? And if it comes from the same one, where did we come from?
Yeah.
And if it comes from a different one, there must be life everywhere.
Wow,
right?
That was a very good answer.
I think it's a great question.
I think it's given those who have asked a bit of hope that there could be, because if they're asking, I feel like they want there to be aliens.
Some people have the job that look for aliens. There's an institute called SETI, and their purpose is to look for aliens.
There you go. You could be an alien hunter.
Yeah, you can think about what would you say? What message would you send to the stars?
Which we've also tried to do, send messages to aliens. So we also have had a couple of questions. I'm going to read this one from Ash from St. John's. Wants to know, when will people be going to Mars?
Well, when we choose to pursue that with a big priority. If we put our efforts into it, it is absolutely within reach. With some time and technological developments, I think that all of you kids in classrooms today, you're likely to be the first generation to be able to go and explore Mars.
Wow.
And who's to say it can't be you sitting in that classroom right now if you put in the effort and you work hard at this goal. To get to Mars, we have some challenges. It's quite far away to get there. It takes between 7 and 10 months, usually around 8 to 9 for the best trajectory. And when you get there, you have to wait a year and a half. So the round trip is kind of 2 to 3 years. Yeah, you've got to wait.
I thought you meant like before you could get off.
No, you could get off after about like 8 to 9 months, depending on the kind of rocket you take to get there. But to get to the surface, you need something that can land, and it's really hard to land on Mars. The atmosphere is thin, and then you need something that can take off again. So we need to make a rocket that can land and take off again. We can kind of do that now. It's pretty exciting. But we also need to be able to create the fuel from what exists ideally on Mars, so from the atmosphere and from the rocks and the other resources there. Otherwise, we've got to carry it all the way there and all the way back. And with rockets, you want to have the most amount of fuel that you can compared to the weight, the mass of the rocket, which is why we stage rockets.
Okay. And speaking of, you had a little, you have a balloon
I
here
do have a
to
balloon.
show me, to give a demonstration about how rockets launch. Is that correct?
Sure. So for those that might be interested in rockets, a balloon is basically a kind of rocket where the pressure of the air inside creates the propellant that pushes it out.
Okay.
So there's something called Newton's laws, and Newton's third law says for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So the action of air escaping a balloon has a reaction from the air around it that pushes it back up.
Okay.
So let's have a look. So if this is a rocket, you got the nozzle at the bottom, where say the fuel would come out, and you want it to go in a certain direction. Simply you can let go, and we know that it goes in the opposite direction, don't we?
Yes.
Like that. But that went everywhere. That went everywhere because the nozzle moves.
Okay.
And in fact, some rockets have nozzles at the bottom to help them steer.
Ah.
They use that same
principle.
principle.
Because they're not all just going.
No, well, yeah, actually, that you can be really smart and put the weight a bit higher than where the drag is. So we have fins to stabilize it and to have the air pushing harder at the back and the weight up the top. And that makes it go more in a straight line.
So they're not just that shape because it looked cool.
It also
Rockets
looks cool.
have function.
They do have
the
function.
design has function.
But in space, they don't have to look like that, right? Because you don't have air in the way.
No, of course not. So because when it after it launches, parts of the rocket move away.
That's right. So as you go through the launches, usually rockets that take something to orbit have 3 stages, because you try and get rid of the bits of the rocket that don't have fuel in it anymore, that have burnt away, or oxidizer in it. So the last bit in space, the nose cone comes off, and it's often just the satellite sitting on top of the final little engine that might be taking it further afield.
There you go. Do people who have spent so long building that rocket, they're like, there's all my work gone.
If it's doing well and it's reliable, they're usually very, very happy.
I'm sure.
Here in Australia, we've actually got a company, Gilmore, building an Australian rocket, and they've had their first attempt, and will be having their next soon. So here in Queensland, we'll be having perhaps an Australian orbital rocket quite soon.
I've got a question that's coming from Bean, also from Wheeler Heights, asking, do people get sick in space?
Yes, in fact, most astronauts get a bit sick. Some get very sick in the first few days, and it doesn't really relate that closely to motion sickness on Earth.
Okay.
So some people that for their jobs are upside down and flying around like a test pilot might get sick for the first time in space from the motion. It's a different part of the year, and basically we try and train for it on ground, but it's not really trainable yet. So for the first few days, you'll see astronauts not moving their head on their shoulders very much. So sometimes people will play jokes on each other and like try and scare them, so you turn around. But you have all these tricks to kind of feel safe and healthy. Most people choose to think the Earth is down and ground in space so that you can be oriented. But in reality, you could choose to make the Earth up and imagine yourself however you want, and that can be quite confusing. I know some astronauts like to imagine that rather than they're walking kind of through the module like you're in a caravan, they like to think that they're falling through a long tunnel or shooting upwards through a long tunnel, and you can play all these tricks on yourself.
There you go. It would be really weird. Have you spoken to people and they're just like, yeah, I guess you have, and they're just like, it's kind of hard to comprehend?
Yeah, I mean, humans haven't been going to space for that long, just over 60 years. But basically, we don't have all the vocabulary to explain it.
Yes.
Humans in some cultures have many words for snow or rain because they experience it a lot. We haven't had civilization in space. One example is when you look back at the Earth and you see that thin blue horizon around the edge, particularly at sunrise or sunset, it's very strong. And it's been described to me like a bright blue, but a dark bright. It's almost like a dark laser, like it hurts your eyes, but it's a dark color. And that's not something that we experience here on Earth. So there's all these new things that we need people to come up with great ways to explain through English or poetry or writing well.
That you could be a space poet. someone watching at home.
Actually, one of the astronauts, one of the 6 in my class, loves poetry. There's an American astronaut that's a poet, so it works.
There you go. Darcy wants to know, do you wear shoes in space?
When you're doing like a moonwalk or you're doing a spacewalk, absolutely, to protect your feet, and because you'll be locking your feet into things that hold them down so you can be moved around the station. But when you're inside the space station, the only time you really wear shoes is when you're in the gym.
Okay.
So when you're in the gym, you actually have a treadmill that kind of keeps you down with bungee cords. You have a bike machine without a seat because you don't need to sit down, and a weights machine. So you need your shoes there. But normally you just wear socks. And in fact, the bottom of your feet get really, really smooth. The dead skin kind of comes away. And then the top of your
bonus.
the top of your feet can get harder because you're often like hooking your feet under bars so you don't float away when you're working on something. So your body is the ultimate adapter. Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, it is quite fascinating. Caden wanted to know, is it hot in an astronaut suit?
If it's very hot, something's gone wrong.
Okay.
Basically, when you're in a spacesuit on the outside of the space station, or say back again in the future on the moon, where you are in the sunlight can be extremely hot, and when you are in the darkness can be extremely cold. So the suit has to balance all this out. So under the suit, you are wearing basically a skin-tight white suit with lots and lots of kind of little wires filled with water, and that water is going through a cooling unit. And there's sort of like an air conditioning in there looking after you too. And under that, astronauts are actually wearing nappies. So if you see an astronaut in a white suit doing a spacewalk, they're wearing a big giant nappy.
Big nappy.
Yeah.
I don't mind the sound of that suit for summer in Australia.
It'd be pretty great,
water
wouldn't it?
Constantly flowing through. It would be quite nice. Malachi from John Warby Public School wanted to know, if you went to space, what would you do?
Great question, Malachi. Well, if you go to space, you're not up there just to enjoy it. You're up there to do a job, and that's why we train so hard. So we do many jobs, but the main job is to be scientists and engineers in the sky, to make discoveries up there you can't make down here because we have gravity in the way and the atmosphere in the way.
Damn gravity.
I know, right?
Get it in the way.
But every kind of science you can imagine, into animals and plants and energy and climate and geology and new medicines, all of that is relevant. So there's hundreds of scientists from your country and around the world that provide you experiments, and you implement and operate them. You also are...
Can I ask, do you get to pitch what those experiments might be?
You can be part of the decision. You can certainly say no to things you disagree with. And there's ethics boards, but you can certainly have focus areas and things like that. But I think that, while I might have things I like, I think that there's far smarter scientists and researchers out there than me, and I would welcome their ideas. Australia has fantastic researchers, not just plants in space and robotics. We've had experiments into sports science and astronaut support up there. We have our Antarctic division and expeditionists supporting with medical devices for astronauts and so on.
Wow.
There's plenty to do.
There's lots to do. We've unfortunately come to our time. I did want to, right up the top here, Gabby had sent in a few jokes. Are you willing to listen to a few jokes to hear us out?
Let's go.
You've probably heard them all. Okay, this is Gabby's favorite, so I'll read this one. How do you throw the best party in the solar system?
You plan it?
I was going to say, I'll quickly read the others. I reckon you'll know all of these. What do you get when you cross an alien and a kangaroo?
I don't know that one.
A marsupial.
Oh, very good.
That was. And how do meteors stay clean?
Don't know. Oh, I have a meteor shower.
There you go.
Nice one.
You're like, I don't need any more space jokes. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on BTN Live and answering our questions. We had a whole heap come through. I wanted to also just quickly shout out, if I can find it. It was, I believe, Patrick's birthday.
Oh.
Who was your teacher? Wait. Happy birthday, Patrick. We'll
Happy
just say
birthday,
that. The message
Patrick.
was confusing, but and happy birthday to anybody else. Well, yeah, thank you again for joining us. I hope you all learned something. I know I learned a lot. I'm still terrified to go to space, but...
You can bust me around from mission control.
Okay, great. I could do that. That's easy. Probably not, actually. I don't think it would be that easy. But yeah. Oh, and... What is it? Oh yes, we've also thank you for our little gift of pura.
Yeah.
Pura, so we can keep that in the BTN office. Maybe we'll go pop them on the set at some point. Little kangaroo, love it.
A marsupial.
Well, have an awesome weekend, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for having me.